The story begins with the narrator standing before a tribunal of black-robed judges. He is condemned to death, but the exact method of execution is left unspoken. Overwhelmed with fear and dread, the narrator experiences disorientation and loses consciousness. When he awakens, he finds himself in complete darkness. The oppressive silence and void-like atmosphere amplify his terror. He begins to explore his prison by touch, crawling on the ground to determine the dimensions of the room. Initially, he believes the dungeon is square, but he later realizes it is circular when he retraces his steps. His exploration leads to a horrifying discovery, a deep, circular pit in the center of the room, nearly causing him to fall in. This pit is a calculated trap, one of many designed to torment him. He imagines the horrors that might await him at its bottom, and the thought of falling into its depths becomes a constant source of fear. As he comes to terms with the pit, his tormentors introduce a new method of torture. The narrator is drugged and awakens strapped to a wooden slab. Above him, he notices a pendulum suspended from the ceiling. Its blade is curved, sharp, and designed to resemble a scythe. Slowly, the pendulum begins to swing back and forth, descending incrementally with each pass. The deliberate motion of the pendulum is agonizing, forcing the narrator to confront his inevitable death. During this ordeal, the narrator's mind oscillates between despair and determination. He observes every detail of his predicament, noting the design and purpose of the pendulum and the actions of his captors. His intellect becomes his weapon as he formulates a plan. Using the scraps of food left by his captors, he smears the bindings around his body with grease and meat, attracting the rats that infest the dungeon. The rodents gnaw through the straps, freeing him just as the pendulum comes dangerously close to slicing into his chest. The narrator's relief is short-lived. Once freed from the pendulum, the torturers deploy their next device. The walls of the dungeon, previously inert, begin to move inward. The iron walls are heated to a glowing red, emitting unbearable heat. As the walls close in, the narrator is forced toward the central pit. The heat and the advancing walls leave him with no escape. The pit, once a passive threat, now looms as his final and most horrifying option. He teeters on the brink of surrender, certain that his death is imminent. In a moment of dramatic tension, salvation arrives unexpectedly. Just as he is about to fall into the pit, the walls suddenly halt, and a hand grasps his arm. The French army, led by General Lassalle, has stormed the Inquisition and liberated its prisoners. The narrator is pulled to safety, and the story ends with his rescue, leaving readers to reflect on the thin line between despair and hope.